Good afternoon once again. And how many of you were in the session below, that HR studio? And how many of you have actually heard BSN for the first time? Mr. Nagesh, for the first time? Okay, and what did you think? He's awesome. Okay, so we've got a benchmark, guys. Right?
That's not fair.
No, we can all. Yeah. I thought this was a team. Okay. Coming to the team, how many of you watched the lander yesterday, Vikram landers? How many of you? Who do you think can be credited with making that a success?
The entire team.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Absolutely?
I know what you're going to say.
Yes, what am I going to say next?
You would say now everything is with the team and not just Siju.
Thanks for that pointer. I'll use that, when it comes up next. No, what I'm trying to point out here is, when I asked you that question, it was all about, what did you think? It's all about who could have had the maximum impact on that mission, right? And come to think of it, there was a huge number of folks, and a phenomenal number of organizations. There's even a very, very small little organization in a place like Bhubaneswar where I was born and I did my schooling and my college there. There's an organization there which is called the Tools, which has provided some very key components of the propulsion system for this, right? So what I'm coming to is, it's about impact, right? And so when I asked you who contributed the most, right, and you just said everyone, which is quite possibly the right thing, right? But if Mr. Somnath, who is the head of ISRO, was asked to choose 5 people to whom they want to give the nation's highest civilian honor, how would he go about doing that? It's all about quantifying that impact, right? Sorry for writing it for so long, but the whole idea is the folks out here are experienced people function folks who've been in the business, who understand business, who understand the people part of it as well, and who over the next 30, 40 minutes with me, with you, are going to discuss as to how does one quantify the impact of people, right, in the organization. End of the day, people is what makes, right? One gentleman, one CHRO mentioned that there are only 2 kinds of resources, people and money. Right? We'll keep money aside, everyone needs it, but people will figure out as to how they do it. So without much further ado, a quick rapid fire line of introductions from each one of you would be good.
All right. Do I need to use the mic or is this good enough?
No, I use the mic, you use the mic, simple.
Oh, yes, there it is. Hi, I'm Asim Jagdale. I currently work at Arvind Fashions as the CHRO. I've been with Arvind Fashions for only 3 months. Before that, I was at Texas Instruments and Asian Paints. So you'll have to allow me my ignorance of the retail industry as a caveat. Thank you.
Yeah, hi, my name is Binny Ashish. I am born and brought up in retail. I have 16 years of experience in the retail industry. Have been at the Shoppers Stop Group, the CrossFit bookstores, and now with Celio Future Fashion. I'm working with Celio as a head HR for the last 4 years now. Thank you.
Thanks, Asim and Binny. So I fall somewhere in between 3 months and 16 odd years. 6 years in retail and rest all in IT. My name is Tanaz Mulla and I'm head corporate HR. The biggest thing, the most exciting thing about retail that I'm excited about right now is the fact that it is the best time for Indian retail. Okay, consumers have so much money to spend and we have so many beautiful things that we can put forth. So it's a happy win-win situation, and that is the most exciting part. So look forward to the discussion.
Fantastic. Thanks, Asim, Binny, and Tanaz. So before we move ahead, a couple of things. How many of you are from the HR function? Okay. And the rest, if you would just hear a couple of voices, which function do you represent? Business support? Anyone from operations? A tad bit. Finance? No. Okay. And what are your expectations from this session? Quick. Guys, I'm not going to run this without your help. Okay? So what's your expectation from this session? Zero. Right. Okay. 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 I mean, which is what the topic says. Okay. Sure. Yes, sir.
I think kind of extending on that train of thought on quantification, we have a lot of metrics in HR already present, but by virtue of being a people function, there are also a lot of intangible aspects that come in within HR.
Okay.
So how do you actually quantify or make those intangible aspects tangible?
Okay. And I'll come back to you when we discuss that. So what we will do is, this is an open house, right? You can step in with your questions, relevant, but questions, and at any point in time, right? And that's the way how we'll do this. It's going to be a nice little cozy little discussion. Now to start off with, I won't ask you what's keeping you up at night, and that's a very cliched thing to say, but what keeps you all individually pumped up?
This mic is in my hand, so I'll answer this. So what keeps me pumped up, every day, probably for the last 16 years, what keeps me pumping to come to the retail industry that I work for. So because I've been here, I don't know anything better than this. I'm from the fashion apparel background, and like the way fashion is constantly changing, people experience, employee experience is also constantly changing, right? So it's a very interesting and challenging space to be in as an HR leader, in terms of understanding as to what should I do next to keep up the employee experience going, and how do I create an HR value proposition for the organization, right, that I'm working for. So when I say HR value proposition, I would mean by saying that, okay, how do I impact whatever I do at the end objective of, in terms of operational efficiency or bringing out the business outcomes. So that's what I mean by, creating an HR value proposition every time, in the organization. So yeah, that's what keeps me going.
Yeah, I think I kind of echo that. What I'll add to that is that what I find fascinating is the dynamism that's quite evident now, which makes things change far more rapidly than before. As you said, Devrat, I think we've known these metrics for a really long time, right? The attrition, fill rate, and all the employee SAT scores and so on and so forth. But what do you do with them is what keeps me excited. So the one standing question I have, at least for myself and my team, is we have to always know why we are doing what we are doing, and that why to me comes out of the, let's call it the impact or the quantification of that impact, and that's what keeps me excited.
I've already covered what excites me the most. So.
Okay. And Binny mentioned about employee experience. Now, what exactly constitutes employee experience? What is this employee experience? We've heard about customer experience and so on and so forth, but what exactly is EX?
So EX would probably, for me, it means that, right from the time the employee is even thinking of coming and giving an interview in Celio, right from that point till the point the employee actually leaves, so from the hire to the retire stage, every touch point is very, very crucial, is what I feel. So when we say customer is the king, for me, my customers are my internal customers, right? So for me, ensuring that every employee is happy at the end of the day and feels a sense of purpose and feels a sense of achievement while he or she is working in the organization is creating a great experience. So what actually keeps them, they look forward for that Monday, or, they look forward for they don't keep looking for the weekly offs. and for a holiday is defines great customer experience for me. So whatever I do in whichever sub function of HR that I actually work for, whether it's talent acquisition or learning and development or any benefits or whatever, I look for what is in it for that employee and create that employee experience for that employee. So.
Okay, excellent. And Tanaz, how do you quantify people impact? I mean, it's very easy to say, people impact whatever hiring I've done, it should result in a maximum impact. I mean, that's all nice things to write in an annual report. But how do you exactly quantify it? I mean, there has to be some specific factors, not only for you, but also for the employee, because the employee needs to know where he or she is at any point in time. Right? Otherwise, we heard about 360-degree feedback, continuous feedback. I mean, it's going on for lots of years, right? So, how do you quantify impact?
So, very good question. If I think somebody in the audience mentioned that, how do we look at beyond HR matrices? So, let's take attrition. Attrition is something that is plaguing most of the retail organizations. We all want to keep our people back. We want to keep our experienced people back. Now, a simple measure of attrition is how many do I lose in the first 90 days of my, of their joining the organization? How many do I lose in 6 months and beyond? So I have these different segments. If I'm looking at a pure quantitative number, the way you have shown, you have talked about impact, I'm looking at an overall number. But when we go to what the gentleman there spoke about, I want to actually understand, is my HR team and is my operating team equipped with an ability to pick cues on attrition much before attrition actually happens? So what are some of the cues that are picked up? Does my person, Binny spoke about, do my employees look forward to working? Are they completely involved in work? Are people busy making their resumes? What is the coffee corner conversation? Is it about who is doing walk-ins and who is opening new stores and where are people going for next interview? So are we equipping our teams to pick up those subtle messages, those subtle signals, such that we avoid attrition? So on the quantitative part, the hard part, I look at a number. I look at an attrition number. And in my key result area, I look at every year on year, I look at a reduction because it's an inverse relationship. But on the other hand, in a qualitative aspect, I would look at, how am I equipping my HR team? How am I equipping my operating managers to pick up these cues so that they stop those attrition? Some of the people may be just attriting because the distance is too long, commute is too long. Can I reduce that? Just, the point being that this is all avoidable. This is all within our control. Are we doing everything within our control, or are we just plugging everything and saying, oh, this person is going at a 30% increase? Would he or she have gone there if you would have addressed his or her issues? If the answer is no, then very clearly we could have done something. So, longish answer, but there is a quantitative aspect, there's a qualitative aspect, and we need to look at both.
And attrition under control?
Attrition could be one. Binny and Asim spoke about employee experience. We could be looking at fill rates. We could be looking at succession planning. We could be looking at how many people are we growing from within. If our footprint, our store footprint is going to go higher and higher, earlier maybe I took 80% from outside and 20% grew internally. Can I move that needle to 60% from outside and 40% internally? And those are some of the matrices that we could be looking at.
Okay. And Asim, people impact, measuring people impact is equal to performance appraisal?
No, I mean, that's a very narrow definition as such, because performance appraisal is just a process which you're trying to put in place, and for whatever reasons we make it seasonal and so on. Those are our own corporate requirements. Anybody true to their salt would tell you that it has to happen live, ongoing, etc. The season, the classic example I would like to quote is, you call an employee and say, hey, you know what, in last July you did this wrong. The obvious response is, hey, why didn't you tell me then? So it's quite ridiculous to think of performance appraisal and that particular conversation as anything to achieve out of, right? But those are some of the evils we have to live with or hopefully change. But coming to your question, therefore, it's not really about performance appraisal. It's staying true to value or to real impact, right? To me, what I find a little bit of putting cart before the horse is we exist as a function and then we say, why do we exist? Well, if we didn't know why do we exist in the first place, right? So the first question to answer is what do you need, and then define what should exist. So for example, take a clean slate. Don't imagine a talent acquisition function at all. First try and figure out what is it that I'm required to do, and then put up a team together and say, okay, we'll do this or we'll not do this. So going back to first principles, trying to define the value and the impact first, and then putting things around it is how I would love to approach it, rather than create something and then start figuring out, well, what purpose does this serve? But if the purpose was not defined, why did it exist in the first place is how I would like to look at it.
That's interesting. And Binny, before I come to you, how many of you believe, what do you think HR is? A cost center? A profit center? Investment center? Not a center? Where are you from, sir? Okay. Okay, essentially what he's saying is you guys invest in him. He'll do the hiring for you. Just joking. Yeah.
So the idea was it's an investment center because you're looking at capitalizing that cost somewhere in terms of getting talent so that you get more business or other functions respectively. So you're somewhere capitalizing that, and when you're capitalizing that, it's an investment, not an expense.
Okay. Anyone else has a difference of opinion?
I think it's an investment center, but if you look at it directly, it functions as a cost center in that only your inflow is happening over there, but the outflow is not visible within HR. So HR is kind of the center where you invest money in, but the returns are generated across all the other functions.
Okay. Does he represent you in board meetings? Good. Now, so when we're talking about investment center and you're talking about capitalizing, he's talking about capitalizing on whatever you've done in terms of getting the right folks in. That's in a way measuring the impact of the people, right? Of people who are part of your organization. How do you do it in Celio?
So when we talk about HR as an investment center, what we're looking at is, so let me give you an example, right? So, and I'll pick up something what Asim was also saying, in the sense that, what is, why are you doing something, right? Or what kind of an impact do you want to actually create? So for example, if, when we look at certain metrics in the organization, whether it is your, what's the sales for the current week, for the last week, this year, your gym roll, your, RPS and things like that. And that is where we actually realize, okay, which store is doing well, which store is not doing well, what is the reason why the store is not doing well. So the reasons could be probably a manning issue, there could be stock issues, there could be a location issue, or there could be a, or the fashion is changing or what. So basically, firstly, we understand what's the reason why there is what there is, why is there an issue, is what we firstly need to find out, right? And then do the why, right? So hence it's important that when we figure out, okay, there is a issue in terms of training, or the person is not understanding the product, a new product is introduced and that is why the sales are dipping down, and training is not, imparted. And hence we go back to our drawing board and say that, okay, look, this area or this region needs certain amount of training, and that is where we invest in terms of the training needs, right? And hence after the training is imparted, then we look at, okay, has a sales dipped or has a sales shot up. So that is where the impact of training literally comes in terms of your sales numbers, whether and how has it impacted, right? So right from why you need to do something, what were the reasons behind it, and what you're going to do about it to get your end result is what you need to look at. And that is where the HR comes in force by saying that, okay, now we are invested into training and we've invested in the people training, and that is where it impacts the sales at the end of the day, right? And post that we actually look at what is your return on investment in terms of training, right? So that is how we create an impact, and that's why I I feel that it is an investment center and not a cost center as such.
Now that's fantastic. I actually gleaned quite a few things here. Now my question to all the HR folks here: how many of you know the KRAs of your store managers? You do? So shout it out. You do. Do you have a daily? Okay, not a daily. Maybe a weekly view in terms of where each store manager is, as far as the KRAs are concerned. Are you aware of what business a store has done? What the fill rates in a store are? You are aware. All of you? Fantastic. What do you think? How many of your colleagues in the non-HR functions know that you're aware of these things? Okay, that could be a controversial question. So, Tanaz, now coming to this. Sorry, did I disturb anyone? I mean, the intent was not that. Okay. Tanaz, how have you seen this change over the past 5 years? I mean, I'm getting some very interesting insights here in terms of, obviously, when we are talking of these people impacts, these are aligned to your larger organizational objectives. I'm taking that as a given, right? Now, how has this changed over the past 5 years? And the reason why I'm picking up 5 years is not because of COVID or anything of that sort, but it's more in terms of the whole digital wave that the whole world has been riding. How have you seen this change in the last 5 years? I mean, all three of you can take a stab at it. I would love to hear from all three of you.
Sure. So the 5 years coincides with the time I have spent in retail. And I was fortunate in my previous assignment with an IT company to actually look at how the retail vertical there was working, So since it was Wipro, we were actually working with Kohl's and, the major European and American retailers. And my whole experience over there was that they were shutting down their stores. The physical stores were shutting down. There was a layer of IT, of digital, of AI already coming in at that point of time itself, where, for example, if you are in that vicinity, mobile mobile tech was being used. And if you were within the vicinity, you would get a promo code and you would get it on your cell saying, Macy's has so much off, why don't you just walk in for the sale? So I was aware of that reality. So when I came in for my interview discussion with the MD at that point of time, Phil, I asked Phil, why are you, why are you so bullish on India and why are you, talking about so many more stores? And he just smiled and he said, we are at the cusp of a perfect storm. And now I know what he meant because, suddenly the Indian consumer has a lot more buying power, a lot more, the Indian consumer has traveled abroad now, has various experiences, has expectations of the same kind of quality that he or she experiences when they travel abroad, and hence the expectation out of our teams on customer centricity is that much higher. So it's been a sea change. COVID brought in the whole aspect of the digital piece for Indian market also, where some organizations woefully lagged behind and some were able to quickly, ride the wave. Having said that, I think currently the way it is, both the ease of e-com and the experience of in-store is going to equally drive the customer preferences. That's the way I see it. Personal point of view. This is not what Trent is saying, but this is my personal point of view. And that has been the evolution I have seen over the last 5 years.
All right. So in the last 5 years, I think obviously the last 2.5 years in between was COVID and pandemic, and that's taught a lot for all of us. In the last 5 years, I've definitely seen a huge change in terms of, getting in technology with HR, specifically with HR, because we were all obviously moving towards the field of from a brick and mortar to e-com. We didn't know whether brick and mortar will survive. We were almost not opening many stores and things like that. And then we saw that, okay, while the shift was happening, but it all came back, organically. So I think a lot has actually changed in the industry as well. And in terms of when I talk about people and employees as well, there's a lot of change again, right? Like I keep saying about the employee experience, the employee expectation from the organization has changed dramatically. Employees' expectation from HR has changed, again, to a larger extent. Earlier, I think the expectation from an employee to an HR was, you process my payroll on time and my salary on time, and, tell me what, when am I getting my salary and my appointment letter. And I think that was it, right? And today, I think HR is so powerful in every organization that I actually see that we've transitioned from same thing, from the cost center to becoming a strategic HR business partner, to becoming a value creator in the organization. I think we've moved a long way in this last 5 years, and I think we're here to stay in. And COVID actually has done a lot of good things, apart from all the tragedies that has happened, but good things for the HR, where the HR is asking for a seat on the table. The HR is a part of every decision that is made in the organization. So I think from an HR standpoint, it's been one of the most wonderful years to be in the HR function. When I still remember when people used to say, oh, I don't like finance, I don't like numbers, so I'm not going to go into finance. I'm not a very good speaker and a good orator, so I can't go into marketing. So what's left is HR. So, all the leftovers would come to HR, right? And today, I think where people actually feel that, okay, no, I want to become an HR because I love people. I want to, talk to people. I want to solve issues. I want to solve concerns. Having said that, while I'm sorry, I'm taking a little more time, but
please go ahead.
while people are actually looking forward to becoming HR professionals, I think because there is a lot of things to give, to the organization and give to the employees, right? While technology, again, in the last 5 years, we've seen a sea change in terms of technology, whether it's the ChatGPT or AI chatbots or generative AI, or a lot of things that have happened in the recent years. While our workload has kind of reduced, but it has not reduced dramatically, but it has, it still requires a lot of HR intervention, even while there is an AI behind, right? So technology is probably, I should say, technology will only empower you, but you are the one who you need to know how to use that technology. So in the last 5 years, right from the experience, that we've actually been working for has only been, improving and improving over in the last 5 years. That's what I would like to say.
Great. And anyone who wants to be part of Binny's team needs to go through me. Okay. But you agree with her? You agree with the transition that's happened from being, it's an also-ran department to being a strategic department, actually very core to an organization's or a brand's success, right? Asim.
Yeah, I think I'll take the 5-year bit as a bit more notional time frame. I think to sort of add to what Tanaz and Binny have already spoken, I think one interesting thing that excites me that I'm seeing change is the way technology is going to play a role in, and is playing a role and is going to play a role in how both the quantification happens and therefore how our work changes. I'll take an example. I think I would believe that when it comes to, say, for example, talent acquisition, turnaround time would have been the classic metric, right? And people would be questioned on why it took so long to fill the position, things like those. Now, I would recall that more often than not, the way to influence that particular metric was to ensure that things happen on time. So you schedule your interview on time and get feedback on time and things like those. Now, all of that in most places, and if there were a few places who were skeptical, they were forced into it by the pandemic. The system takes care of it. So you don't really need a person or a human being to schedule things anymore. And so that particular metric is no more about the time it takes to fill the position, which automatically pushes the people in that department to look at, let's say, things like the quality of hire or the experience of the candidate. Now, to me, that's the change which is going to continue. So the fact that a lot of these things are going to force us into genuine value adds, if I were to call them that, where a human intervention is required, where a system can't replace it, That's good news for us because that means our roles are only going to get richer. They have been getting richer over the last 5-10 years, and they'll only continue to get richer. Secondly, I think it also ought to make us more comfortable, and I'll probably pick on the word quantification here because it typically takes us into numbers. We have to get comfortable with both qualitative aspects, which you spoke of, Tanaz, as well as I would say subjective aspects. Because not everything can be objective, and how do we get comfortable with things which need not be objective and yet have validity in them is, I believe, the other change I see happening. Last but not the least, if I were to just extend that, I mean, the systems, so to speak, have replaced transactions. Now the systems are going to replace decisions. They are going to replace, the quantifiable decisions. So anything which could be decided on the basis of a combination of a certain number of variables is going to go out of our hands very soon, which means all those things which can't be quantified or which cannot necessarily be merely a correlation of factors are where human beings will be required, which in my opinion is how we should see the future also. So, I mean, quantification, to therefore cut the answer into a sentence, is only going to become more and more real in my opinion.
Quantification is crucial, and like you said, a mix of qualitative as well as quantitative, kind of an approach is needed to get a more well-rounded assessment of an individual. But having said that, now if you look at a typical store manager, right? How do you measure his value to the brand? How do you measure? Do you measure by the numbers that he totes in? What are the factors? If I could start with you, Tanaz.
So you're right, Siju. Right now, it is all skewed on numbers for the store manager. So first, starting itself, whether he or she is handling an A category, B category, C category store. So what is the business size opportunity? That's the overriding factor. In that, then we drill down into what is going to be the, like-for-like sales, the OPEX, store OPEX, attrition numbers, average bill value. So many parameters that we all know, and all of them are quantifiable numbers. Essentially, however, when we drill down into what good store managers do, they are good at two things. They are good at ensuring that they put the right people in the right roles. Okay, so they intuitively know who has a flair for what and are able to put those people there. Point number two, they are able to deal with a lot of ambiguity. They are able to, and most store managers are able to deal with a lot of crisis and ambiguity on the go. Related to the first point, they are able to upskill also very well. So they know whom to pair up whom with to, get the buddy piece in place. So it is they do it intuitively. They are not, there is no handbook that we will say that, yeah, this is, there's nothing like that. But we see that they have a flair for that. Unfortunately, do our appraisals see that? No, they don't. They only look at the number piece and they say, okay, you did all of this and you are at 100% or you are at whatever percentage. So that is an aspect, Siju, that I think we can certainly look down upon, as in look into, because more and more the qualitative aspect will be the differentiator, because everybody does their numbers. If you don't do your numbers, you're not a store manager. As simple as that. But having said that, what do the top guys do, or the top lady store managers do? I think that needs to be drilled down further.
No, excellent. And how many of you here believe that the qualitative aspects of human performance or people performance needs to be taken into account? How many of you believe? But how do you do it? How do you quantify it? You have an answer? Yeah. Please.
If you look at, I think the way we measure the metrics.
A short intro, please. Where are you from?
My name is Binny, working from paid industries.
Okay.
I think the way we measure our metrics, if you look at, there is a major shift which happened between, say, 7 years back and now. If you look at what used to be 70% retail, 30% experience, is now 70% experience, 30% retail. And I say that it's not about what we measure in terms of store performance, not just the numbers.
there is a major shift which happened now, which is the experience per square feet. That's a very critical matrix which a lot of organizations are measuring now, including, for example, Arvind. Yeah? The organization which I belong to. So that's the major shift which I've seen recently now. So excellent. I think experience per square feet. Now, it's a nice thing to do, but you will need to build a model around how do you. There are multiple models.
How do you quantify it, right? Yeah.
For example, NPS.
Right.
It's a critical element to measure experience.
So experience from per square feet. And what's your price per share now, Page Industries? How much is it now? It's at some stratospheric level, right? Okay, jokes apart. No, thank you so much, Funny. I think that's important. And I think it is about understanding what these matrices are, these qualitative matrices, and then putting in place a system to quantify it, or a model to quantify it, capture it, and then make a decision on it. Right? Now we are slowly getting into the.
I want to add a bit.
Sure.
I think the one thing which I don't want to miss out on is when you're calling something as a metric of, say, the store manager, right? And these metrics or whatever we come with are not new to any of us. What really matters, in my opinion, is simultaneously, if not in fact before you get to the metric, you define what is it that I as a store manager I'm going to do to really influence that metric. Because measuring is one thing. What really matters is, say, for example, if you're going to measure me on the revenue in the store, what am I doing to influence that measure is far more important than just saying, hey, if the store does more revenue, we'll get a reward, or so on and so forth. So we kind of alienate the role from the purpose if we just come up with metrics without really very clearly linking to how we have designed the role. So what I hear and what sort of I'm interested in now is trying to very clearly say, what is it that I want my store manager to do? What is it I want my area manager to do? What is it that I want my regional manager to do? And not have them just follow up on each other, which is what we have seen, right? Just reviews over reviews, which is quite should hopefully be seen as senseless. So the real point I'm trying to make is, please first define what am I going to do in my role, and then the metric would follow out of it. So let's not measure the store manager just because it's possible to measure revenue at a store. Means nothing to the gentleman or the lady. We are only being cruel to them.
So assume, so before you step in, Tanaz, I've got a question for Asim. Suppose I'm the store manager of one of your USPA, large USPA stores.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I am, and let's say USPA is planning to open up 5 stores, new stores in 5 new cities. Brand new.
Yeah.
Hitherto untouched. And I go onto LinkedIn as a store manager, using my personal account. I talk about these store openings. I might be also retweeting a tweet from, let's say, the USPA official account, which is talking about these 5 store openings.
Yes.
As a store manager, can I expect to be rewarded?
We are getting into the realm of what would be discretionary and would certainly get rewarded. But would you, to sort of continue with my previous point, I would first want to define what I expect my store manager to do. Am I saying you have to stop at this and not do more? Certainly not. And in fact, if there is a store manager of mine who without prompting does that, first of all, they're showing clear signs of potential of much higher responsibility that they can take, which I have to be smart enough to pick and give them that responsibility. So what he or she chose to do by discretion, I would love to make that a part of their role. So if I'm saying that if let's say, and now to pick on this particular example, if new store opening and therefore ensuring success of new stores is surely a metric for somebody, this person is at least covering one aspect of that particular role and are showing potential for it. So would I reward them? Yes. Does that mean I expect every one of my store managers to do that? Is a question I should ask and see if I'm enabling them to do that.
Right. Right. In other words, what you're saying, Asim, is that you are open to building this as a model as part of your performance appraisal. I mean, loosely called performance appraisal. And obviously, you'll define the parameters behind it and see as to what is needed when. Right?
Yeah. What I mean is, we want a culture where your systems, so to speak, are going to ensure the bare minimum. They're never, and they should never be a hindrance to innovation or creative thought, or for that matter, the ability of employees to step up and say, I'm willing to take more. So how much do I want to engineer and how much do I want to leave for individuals to bring by their own is where I would want to draw the line. So therefore, I'll object to the statement saying I'll build this kind of discretionary stuff into my system. I don't think we have the capability to purely predict what human beings are capable of. I think I recently saw a movie where they talked about how these Doritos came about, the spicier Mexican sort of spice version. And if you see, it's a shop floor employee who came up with the idea. The fact that Pepsi had a structure or a system where he could reach out to the CEO and give that idea is, to me, and I would believe that is a good metric for somebody at leadership level. Are you able to ensure that good ideas come up and not in the interest of creating good metrics and measurable stuff, are you stifling people in terms of what they could do beyond that?
Yes, Tanaz.
So just quickly going back to Asim's point of job purpose, in between there was a vogue where people said that do away with job descriptions, do away with resumes, XYZ. Now it's all very good for an IT organizations where there is a lot more, there are a lot more structure along vanilla model, which service line, which vertical, which domain are you belonging to. It makes it very easy. But for a industry like retail, which is run to a large extent on very well-defined parameters, to just say that I will do away with job description is a little premature according to me. So I'm happy that Asim called that out and said, why does a job exist? And that's the primary reason for a job description. What is the purpose of the job? I mean, I'm going back to HR 20 years back, which was, all about knowing the job description and then evaluating how the job would be. So I agree. My only point is, let's not go into fads. Just because it looks good and sounds great for some other industry, it may not apply, it may not be relevant to our industry. So thank you, Asim.
Just to comment on that though, I think when people have said do away with job descriptions or resumes, I hear it more as do away with rituals. Do away with the ghisa pita stuff. I mean, let it be real. And so in that sense, in essence, they're not really opposed to the JD per se. They are saying, I mean, if I read it, I find spelling mistakes in it. So I can see your intent in, don't stop this ritualistic, send your resume. Nobody's read my resume. So why are you asking me for it? Is a good question, is a genuine question.
Right. I mean, there's this particular joke that goes around, right? So the interviewer says, tell me about yourself. And that guy said, you must have got my resume. And he said, yes. So you must have read about me. Right? So yeah, that's on a lighter note.
So that's why we've changed, and we ask, tell me something what's not there in the resume. So.
Wonderful.
Excellent.
Interviewer guide 101.
Okay.
Somebody will start training candidates, and the candidate will say, what
Yeah.
is not in my resume is what I would like to share.
Give it time and there'll be a quota for it.
Exactly.
Quota as in KOT.
Right. Now, obviously, we all want to do a lot of stuff, right? Okay, how many of you sitting out here believe that the impact that you as a person, as an individual, get to the role and to the brand is not being recognized 100%? Everyone's happy? So what I'll infer from this is all that you do in the interest of the brand and interest of your job is being accurately acknowledged, recorded, noted, and rewarded by the organization. Is that? No?
We are the organization and we are recording and we are documenting. And this session is also getting recorded. So everything is part of our KRA is documented.
One of my first questions towards the beginning of the session was, who is from HR and who is not from HR? Well, the guys who are not from HR meet me outside the room. We'll probably have to build up something here. No, but jokes apart. There would be some which is not recorded, which is not being taken into the whole ambit. And it's not because the organization doesn't want to or the HR leaders don't want to. Right? It's probably because the systems do not allow you to do so, which is where I come to a sensitive topic. Are you really enabled to do all that you want to do for the people function?
Am I allowed to do what I want
Not
to
allowed.
do?
Are you enabled? Do
Okay.
you have the tools? Do you have all the necessary capabilities, abilities that will help you execute on your dream for the people function at Celio?
Yeah, so I think I am enabled and probably capable also to get there. So I think okay, I lost the thread of the conversation.
Are you enabled as a function?
Yeah, so obviously, so we are, in Celio, obviously we are enabled as a function to kind of take decisions on people front, on the business front completely. So I don't think there has ever been a question from my CEO saying that, okay, Binny, why are you doing something like this? Because when I do certain things as an HR leader, it's always with the aspect of some data decisions that I take. Okay, so while we're asking that, is everything quantifiable? Probably no. So there are water cooler discussions, there are grievances. So we can probably look at grievances and we can say, okay, I addressed 10 grievances. But what was, and probably say that, okay, for every grievance, I took 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hour. But it also depends on the employee and how much time did I take to kind of, address that issue. So I will not be able to quantify every aspect in the organization, and kind of address that. But if am I enabled to do what I want to do, quantifiable and qualitative? Yes, I am. So I think that kind of, so when does an HR leader get that kind of a power to be enabled is because when you talk to a CEO or the entire senior management team in terms of numbers, in terms of data, in terms of telling them, okay, what is in it that we are doing as an HR department, I think they will not question after a later stage. So they will give you that kind of a luxury to kind of go ahead and do what you want to do.
Right, but Binny, earlier on, I did hear you say that you need to know how to use tech.
Correct.
Right? Now, is your team completely on board with that? Do they know how to use tech? Do they have the necessary tech at their disposal?
Yes, so I will not say that we are there, we are reaching there, we are in that journey of building a lot of things that we want to actually build. There's a huge wish list that we have saying that, okay, we want to kind of build the entire HRMS platform, so which we've already done. We want to ensure that, employees, when they are geographically, they're all geographically spread across the country, right? For me, in Celio, we have an SAS, we have EBOs, we have, we have SIS and MBOs and distribution. So my employees are actually spread across geographies. I do not have a store manager in every store, right? I do not have an HR in every area. So it becomes too difficult for me to kind of reach to that one person who's probably joined in, say, Chandigarh, Elante store. It's too difficult to kind of reach out to that person individually. And how can I reach out to that person is obviously through technology, right? And that is where the entire intervention from the HR comes in. Can I use a WhatsApp to kind of reach out to that person? Can I use my HRMS platform to reach out to that person to tell what the organization is about that you're joining? Which organization are you joining? It's a French men's apparel brand, right? So they should know these nuances when they are joining on the shop floor the first day. So how do I enable my employees to know that where are they, who are they, who's the HR department who's sitting in the Bombay office and probably going to, take care of me throughout my entire career with Celio. So I think that is where, my function, my HR department, my HR team is being enabled, saying that, okay, we need to kind of embrace technology. Having said that, while we are doing everything online and saying that, okay, just send a message, by just sending a message will not serve the purpose. Picking up the phone, calling that person up, understanding that person's issues and concerns is also has also to be dabbled into, right? So because you just can't leave it everything to technology, there has to be a human intelligence or emotional intelligence quotient that also will go along with technology. So hence there has to be a balanced approach from the HR perspective, saying that, okay, while I'm using technology, I shouldn't forget that there is a human touch that I need to cater to. I shouldn't forget that the water cooler conversations will happen and I should be a part of it, understand the pulse of the employees while I am, talking to 10 people or just walking down the aisle and I realize that somebody is talking about something, and I should have my eyes and ears open to understand all those things and then take decisions according to that.
Thank you so much. Asim or Tanaz, anyone want to take up in terms of are you enabled, or is it something that...
So I think Binny has covered it very extensively. I will only add on to one more point. Our focus for being enabled to serve employees better is to ensure that we focus obviously on the digital piece that you spoke about. But in addition to that, also, there are two aspects I want to call out specifically. How are HR guys skilling themselves? It's very important for us to understand that HR is not just about getting the person, getting hands and legs and ensuring that the fill rate is there, though it's a very important business imperative. But how do we ensure that we are equipped to bring in more than what the ops guy brings in? Point number one. Point number two, how is it that our HR folks gain credibility and skills via doing that point one to actually make the operating guys come back to them? So you're understanding, right? It's a very, it's very driven by respect. One is I have to come to you, Siju, for whatever, so I come to you. But another one is I need not come to you, but I still come to you because I value what you say. And I believe that you as a professional bring value. Now that is the sweet spot which most of the functionaries must be hitting. How much are they invested in themselves, and how well are they investing their managers? How well are they facilitating those discussions? I think two more points.
Excellent. And Asim, I distinctly remember you mentioning in terms of what do you do about the metrics. That's more important, right?
Yeah.
Right? So are you able to do what you want to do with the metrics right now?
Yeah, I think the points of what we need in terms of enablement and skilling are covered, and I just echo them. What I'll bring though is, and going back to that, right? What's the purpose of all this is something we can't lose focus of. So let me talk about what I think I need to be better enabled to do as somebody responsible for the HR function. One, there is a very easy trap of over information to get into. So, so am I going to respond to every tweet? Would be a question I would want to ask myself. So there is a lot of information available. It's my responsibility to ensure, and therefore I need to be enabled to make the right choice in terms of focusing on what is really essential and not send my team members on wild goose chases. It will be a waste of effort, waste of energy, and would not really result into anything tangible. So that's one thing I believe I need to be careful of. The second thing I am very wary of is how much and where are we going to draw the line in terms of what we can measure. We technically can measure the presence of a store staff within 100 meters of a store and start beeping alarms if they go beyond that. Maybe we can go to ridiculous levels. You have to be really, really careful as to where you draw the line and what do you expect from people. So I'll go back to the point of measurement not being the purpose by any sense, in any sense of the word. We have to first define what do we want our people to do and then use measurements for it, right? Because and to quote that, or rather use that example, if I'm trying to say your job is to be in the vicinity of the store through the 8.5 or 9 hours, that's how I'm defining the role. Versus saying you own the brand and you really, really own the customer. Will I really be bothered about whether the person is in 100 meters or not? I would be trying to solve some other problems which make them belong to the brand, belong to the store. And that's what I would want to solve. So the pitfall of measuring something just because you can measure it is what I would want to avoid.
No, excellent point, Asim. So since we are running out of time, and if we don't conclude this, we'll be forcefully evicted by the show of strength that I can see. Any questions from the audience?
It's not a question, just the 2 points which I have been listening. When you ask this
A small intro, please. Where are you from?
I'm Sangeeta, I am CHRO Pvt.
Of course.
So it's wonderful listening to all of you. I'm just taking point from Asim exactly. When you said whether we we are the foundation, and it's not because of anything else, we are human. So human resource more than we are the foundation who is building. And more than that, exactly, I believe that we have to take the ownership. It is not about, exactly, if you design something, any concept will not work. These are your KRAs and all. Until and unless you don't have that ownership mindset, you have this limited resources, you have to run the show. Last minute you cannot say, ma'am, ye aaya nahi, wo aaya nahi. Aap owner ho, aap run karo. Yehi paisa diya hai. That is what the impact. And exactly, I'll agree that, we as with limited resources, especially in retail, and we know the capability in the competence level, we have to drive, we have to run the show. And we know that, like now, if they are the show runners, they are managing so many, they are running around ensuring everything is happening on time. How do you ensure, and that too with a smile? And that is our.
No, fantastic point. In fact, we talk about the hire to retire continuum, but what just gets highlighted is the hire and retire. I mean, everything else in between. No, it's a fact, right? I mean, and I'm talking of this as a non-HR guy, right? And like I was telling my panel, when we were just getting in, that when I was at Microsoft, and I actually reached out to my HR regarding an issue where I still strongly believe that they could have played a role. They said, no, it's in your hands. The future is in your hands. Okay, I want to ask them as to what about my present, right? No one seems to be handling that right now. So somehow, somewhere, that entire continuum is missing. And that's what, thank you for getting this up, because intrinsically, the entire discussion has actually laid bare the fact that it's a continuum. It's a journey, right? It's an employee journey. And when you talk about employee experience, when we put this up in LinkedIn yesterday, one of my friends who actually heads technology for a large group in the US, he said, customer experience cannot be attained without employee experience. And that's a head of technology who's talking. He's not CHRO, he's not the CEO, he's not the chief strategy officer, he's not the CDO. He just needs to keep his lights on. I know the pressures that he's under, right? His budgets are cut 5% every year, irrespective of what happens on the revenue level. Now, when he says that customer experience cannot be attained without employee experience, it's true. And like Fanny mentioned, right, about experience per square feet, that's an interesting concept. So it's all with you. Honestly, I know it's like, giving it back, paying it back, but actually the future is in our hands, right? In the sense that free to make models, build models, get more inclusive, truly inclusive.
And the present is also very bright.
And the present is also very bright. Tata Trent has all the reasons to say so. Look at the figures. Look at the figures that they reported. So, jokes apart, I think it's all about how do we look at, forget about, I don't want to get into semantics of whether it is human resources or human capital or whatever. I mean, call it whatever you want, but end of the day, like you rightly mentioned, an employee should look up to you as someone who's not just a support function, but a complete enabling function, right? And in this,
I have to just say, as a human, we have to have that association. Suppose if I'm speaking to Siju now, it is not, I must have met hundreds of people. After I leave this, I should always remember and take that one learning. Exactly, I may, why is that we are there, the purpose, and ambiguity and stress to handle something. Am I a solution provider, or I'm coming with that kind of, problem? I'm a problem statement, or I'm a solution provider? That is a question of a value creation.
so let me conclude taking off from what she says and ask you, did you learn, or was any value add there in the last 1 hour of sitting here with us?
Yes.
If yes, we're really, really thankful for the attention that you've paid out here and for staying awake after the lunch. This is a typical graveyard shift. But thank you so much. We really loved speaking to the panelists here, and I'm sure all of us love the experience. Thank you so much, and look forward.